Hi everyone, Lisa Haven here, and I've got a shocking development that you guys absolutely need to be aware of, and that is this. If you're in the United States military right now, and you so much as asked the question why Black Lives Matter and Antifa protests are not being treated like the Capitol 6 riots that happened, if you ask that question and you're in the military, then you are now worthy of needing some real re-education. And I'm not even joking here. And this is why I have a problem with it, because the First Amendment, right? This little thing called the First Amendment, which you guys are already well aware of, but I want to hone in on this part. Our First Amendment guarantees the right of citizens here in the United States of America to assemble peacefully. That's the key word. We're allowed to assemble peacefully and to petition our government. Now, what you don't see in the First Amendment is it doesn't say you're not allowed to petition the government or protest the government if you believe there's election fraud. No, it doesn't say that. Or it doesn't say you can't, have a grievance with the government and protest against them if you're against lockdown measures or mandates or, fill in the blank, right? It's open-ended. If there is something that you want to assemble against the government on, you can do it, but you have to do it peacefully. Okay, peacefully, key word there. Now that said, the military, a lot of people in the military are saying, well, BLM and Antifa wasn't done peacefully. In some cases it was, and in some cases it wasn't. Same with the Capitol 6. You've had people there who peacefully assembled and some who didn't. So they crossed that constitutional line when it went from peaceful to violent in both situations. One situation, they were protesting or took the grievance to the government over what happened with the U.S. election. On the other side, they're protesting what they're calling police brutality and racism and xenophobic, all of that. On one side, you're allowed to have protest, but both crossed the line when they went into violence. And there's been more violence from radical BLM and Antifa now for just so much as questioning that. Just asking the question, then you need to be re-educated on what is, acceptable, right? And I'm not even, I'm just, my jaw wants to hit the floor on this. But before I get into the topic, I got to tell you, you got to get on over to restrictedrepublic.com right now. You can get the first 30 days for $1. And that includes a 14-day free trial. So you're basically getting about 45 days for $1. And that's an amazing price. But right now, get in there, check out some of the information we have. You can see some of the stuff that we've been posting on there. But look, we don't know how long we're going to be on these platforms. So I got to tell you, we got to start migrating over. So check it out at restrictedrepublic.com and use the code $. You have to plug in the code $to get the discount. So check it out there. Now, also with that, I wanted to tell you guys about a conference I'm going to be at. This is Steve Quayle. It's this Extinction Protocol online conference, and this is going to be streaming June 11th through the 12th. And if you want more information on that, I'll leave that in the description box below, but it's on stevequailwebsite.com. All right, so let's get over onto what's going on with our U.S. military. Here we are, zerohedge.com. Defiant. U.S. soldiers are now openly questioning why BLM riots are not treated like Capitol insurrectionists. Then we have this military article, and this is on the same topic, but I'm going to dive into this one here. But military.com. Some troops see the Capitol riot and BLM protest as similar threats, top enlisted leaders say. Now, the article goes on to state this, and this is a very recent article published March 19th, 2021, but it says, some troops have drawn equivalencies between the January 6th riot at the U.S. Capitol and last year's protest for racial justice during a recent stand down to address extremism, worrying the military's top enlisted leader. Remember, they did that whole stand down, I think it was in February, for 60 days, and they're still in the midst of that because they wanted to train the military or weed the military out from white supremacists, which we're still not exactly sure if white supremacist equals conservative or not. It's to be determined, but nonetheless, it's in these particular education courses that the military is asking a question, right? But it goes on. In a Thursday briefing with reporters at the Pentagon, Ramon CZ Lopez, the senior enlisted advisor to the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, said that some troops have asked when the January 6th riot is brought up, how come y'all are not looking into the situation that was going on in Seattle prior to that, like, the BLM and Antifa riots? He said that is one example of the mindset many military leaders are encountering, and he is concerned about the way some people are looking at the current environment. So, in other words, there's a problem with asking that question, but let's dive in a little bit more. And this is a little bit deeper into this article. This is what it says here. And I quote, Colonel Lopez said the confusion of some younger troops have expressed shows why the training sessions on extremism are needed. So because they're asking that question, this is the very reason why they're doing these sessions and re-educating our military. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin ordered the stand down on February 5th and gave units across the military 60 days to discuss extremism in the ranks with troops. The military's policies are clear, he said. Troops are not to advocate for or participate in supremacist, extremist, or criminal gang doctrine, ideology, or causes. This is great. We shouldn't have that in our military. I agree, but we move on. The military remains an apolitical organization, he said, and it doesn't matter if an extremist group is far right or far left, both are off limits. Well, if it's all off limits, then maybe you should talk about the extremism on both sides. Just kind of adding that note here. But the article goes on a little bit more, and I'm going to hone in on this section. But as the training sections took place, some themes emerged that worried leaders. Those conducting the session wanted to make sure that military members understood the difference between Seattle, aka the BLM and Antifa riots, and the January 6th riot in Washington, D.C. Lopez said, but some of your younger members are confused about this. So that's what we need to go ahead and talk to them about and educate them on. Let's re-educate them to make sure that they know exactly what they can and cannot do. So he goes on, and he also noted that the military was called to respond after the Capitol attacks, but they were not called to support law enforcement during the Seattle protests. Let me just pause right here. Trump offered to send in military aid, the National Guard, to help with some of these protests, but it was denied by the Democratic leadership in that state at that time. But I'm just going to move on from that. And he drew a distinction between those who lawfully exercise their First Amendment. Again, let's go back to the First Amendment. First Amendment says you can do it peacefully. All right, moving on, right? He drew a distinction between those who lawfully exercise the First Amendment right to protest during last summer protests in support of racial justice and the Black Lives Matter movement, and those, who latched on to the protest to loot, destroy property, and commit other crimes. You could also say the same for the January 6th. People latched on to the protest there at the Capitol, and they decided to destroy property and commit other crimes. You see how you could do that easily with both sides? You could. But somehow one side is a latch on and the other side isn't. But let's move on. You want more information on that? You got to get on over to Restricted Republic, because I really get into the Capitol there. But anyway, more detail oriented. But sometimes he says the younger troops see messages on TV that blur the lines between the two. And he says we need to educate these people on the difference. They both turned violent. They should both be condemned. But he goes on, no, that's not what I meant. He says there are people advocating against social justice, racial injustice, and everything else, and it is the right of citizens. All right, meanwhile, right? Let's go as just a quick reminder to some of the stuff that happened with BLM and Antifa. We have Here's Sean Fitzgerald, and he quotes military.com, the article that I just read to you. He quotes that article here where he talks about troops are questioning the riot and BLMs and calling them similar. And here's what he has to say about that. Similar? That's ridiculous. The Capitol riot was one day. Black Lives Matter had 600 plus in just 90 days, and they have the support of the mainstream media, right? Let's move on a little bit here to this article on the Guardian.com, not Gateway, excuse me, Guardian.com. At least 25 Americans were killed during protest and political unrest in 2020. 25 Americans. How many died at the Capitol? 4 Trump supporters and 1 other person. So 5 people total. And we're talking 25 from these riots that have been taking place all across our country for a very long time. And how about the actual physical damage that was caused? Here's access.com. Exclusive 1 billion plus. That little plus there. Riot damage is the most expensive in insurance history. Now, this is back in September. There's been more damage done since then, but I really like this next article on it because they don't say 1 billion plus. They give a much bigger number, which is more accurate. And this is on dailymail.co.uk. Revealed widespread vandalism and looting during BLM protests will cost the insurance $2 billion after violence erupted in 140 cities in the wake of George Floyd's death. Then we have things like this that happened that are very critical. The GatewayPundit.com. Portland Antifa and BLM launch explosives at federal buildings. Wait, Capitol, federal buildings? But wait, these people barricaded agents inside. Wait now. I don't remember anybody being barricaded inside at the Capitol, but either way, I condemn them both. They're both bad. But now if you so much as question that, let's re-educate you on the mindset, U.S. military, because that one's okay. It's just people are latching on, causing the chaos. We're talking 140, 150 cities now, plus. I think that's much higher, maybe 200 something at this point. I'm blanking on the number, but really high number on how many of our cities have burned. Billions of dollars. We're not talking millions here, people. We're talking billions in damage. 25 some odd people dead. And you're going to tell me they're both ugly. They both cross the line of our First Amendment, right? Meanwhile, there's even more protests still happening today. And look, I'm all for a peaceful protest. I support it 100%. You want to get out there? That's our constitutional right to get out there and peacefully protest. And if BLM and Antifa want to go out and do it peacefully, so be it. And if Trump supporters, and I'm a Trump supporter, want to go out there and we want to peacefully assemble, then so be it. That is our right, our constitutional right here in the United States of America. And now they're attempting to draw one is politically acceptable and the other isn't politically acceptable. That's like saying you can only take some grievances to the government, but not others. Only those that we accept. And, only on one side can people latch on and cause chaos, but not the other side can people latch on and cause chaos. And I can't even really get into a lot of those details. But anyhow, please make sure you get all the facts and details of what's truly going on. Anyhow, don't forget to check out my partner at healthwithlisa.com. Look, if you guys haven't tried this collagen, it's absolutely amazing. And in my personal opinion, one of the best that exists, and because it's got 5 different types of collagen and it's really helped my hair, my skin, and nails. I mix it in my coffee every single morning, and they've got up to 51% off, but it mixes in really easy, and that's why I like it. But check it out at healthwithlisa.com and take advantage of that amazing collagen. All right. With that, thank you so much for tuning into the channel. I'm Lisa Haven, signing out.